Like I said.
Good afternoon, everybody. Looks like we have a forum here today, so we can call the meeting to order of the Waco MPO Policy Board for February 19th, 2026 to order at 1:35 p.m. MPO staff, has this meeting been posted? Yes. Are there councils that should be called into session? No, we're good for the moment. All right. Then with that said, we can move on to item 2, public hearing. We allow the public to address the MPO Policy Board on any agenda item. Please complete a speaker's registration card with the MPO staff. Speakers will be allotted one presentation at the beginning of the agenda for each item the speaker wishes to address. Please note that each action item will have a separate public hearing later in the agenda. Speakers can address the board at either time, but you will only be allowed one opportunity to address the board per agenda item.
Brindamos una oportunidad para que el público se dijera a las juntas de políticas de MPO sobre cualquier tema de la agenda. Completa una tarjeta de registro de ordenador con un personal de MPO. A los ordenadores se asigna una presentación al comienzo de la agenda por cada tema de la agenda que el ordenador desea abordar. Tenga una cuenta que cada punto de acción tendrá una ausencia pública separada más adelante en la agenda. Los ordenadores tienen la opción de dirigirse a la junta en cualquier momento, pero solo se les permitirá una oportunidad para dirigirse a la junta en cualquiera de los momentos. Pero solo se les permitiría una oportunidad de dirigirse a la junta directiva por cada punto del orden del día.
Okay. For items not on today's agenda, visitors have a separate hearing at the end of the meeting. MPO staff, do we have any registered speakers? No. There are no registered speakers, so we can move on to agenda item number 3, approval of minutes. And item number 3 is to consider approval of the minutes of the January 15th, 2026 MPO Policy Board meeting. Copy of the meetings was provided in your meeting packet. Are there any corrections to the minutes as submitted? If none, the minutes are approved as presented. Moving on to agenda item number 4, update and discussion on policy issues and considerations of interest to the policy board. Dr. Kumar.
So we have been having these discussions about the policy board, asking more policy related questions that actually end up shaping the kind of projects we have. And so based on that, what we wanted to present to you that you have already given us the direction that this does need to be a standing policy agenda item. One of the items, which we are still wondering about, in which, we do need your direction and help understanding about how we process this, is that transportation always intersects with a whole bunch of other urban issues. So that goes, Federal Highway Administration recognizes at the minimum that they have to be. So if you recall in our MTP, and we refer to FAST Act that clearly delineates that economic development, housing, even tourism, these are all ideas that clearly translate or intersect with transportation policies. And so we are very much within our purview to start considering those items more explicitly. And so one of the ways that we were wondering, and that's what we wanted to present as a thought-provoking idea, that the regional vision statement that we have that the policy board worked on prior to the last MTP has a lot of ideas that if you read through them, they look like everything that we would find desirable in every community we want them. And so that's what you see in the bullet point communities that are physically healthy, economically prosperous, technologically up to date, and so on. So you notice that it covers a really almost every aspect of our urban area. But the question that would be really important for us to consider would be that if these ideas really cover the regional values that are most important to you, and because whatever policy decision we make, whatever policy discussions we have, it is going to be crucially important for us to identify what some of the top 2, 3, 4, 5, however many they are, important issues we have for us. And so just to give you an example in terms of how they would translate to some of the project decisions level decisions you make, take the business 77, US 77 corridor access and circulation guideline project that you have directed us to pursue. That project and the decision that you have made clearly reflects your priorities related to economic redevelopment in very specified areas. It also identifies the importance of preserving, maintaining the existing infrastructure. A lot of our water sewer infrastructure that's already there is relatively old, and by undertaking such a project, you are clearly prioritizing how important it is for you to ensure that our existing infrastructure is in good condition. Simultaneously, given the shared use path and its importance in the nature of the project and the design of the project itself, what you're also doing is identifying the importance of active transportation and quality of life issues. And so this way, this project clearly reflects these three very important values that we could specify. And so the question for us is this the kind of value implementation that you would like to see in most of your decision-making processes? So for instance, whenever you are making decisions on the tip, which is going to come up very soon, actually, over the next 3 to 4 months, how would you like to have the discussion on the projects that will be included in the tip so that they accurately reflect the value preferences that you have as a matter of a regional policy-making body? Oh, yes.
Waco City Council
That's right.
session 139.
All right. Thank you, Mayor.
And the second example I would like to bring up also is Hewitt Drive. Hewitt Drive is listed about 3 different places in our MTP, including one place where it is listed for a feasibility study. But the reality of it is that if we, along with in our feasibility study, we have 3 different important issues. Another one related to the north-south regional connectivity area. So these are all issues that we can bring up about why are they important, and Policy Board can in fact make some of the decisions, give directions. So the Hewitt Drive, the reason why we love to bring that up is because Hewitt Drive is sort of in the same position today, what most likely Valley Mills Drive was almost 40 years ago. And by making different sets of choices, you can actually set the future of Hewitt Drive on a very different trajectory. But given the way it is right now, it is almost following the same trajectory as what Valley Mills Drive looks like today. And so by simply identifying the land use context of it, by identifying how the different cities, in this particular case, 3 different cities and the county, how they can work together to make sure that some of our most important corridors, similar to Business 77, actually receive the kind of attention that they deserve, and also in time, so that we could make some of these choices earlier rather than once the changes have already occurred. But these are all examples that we wanted to bring up for your consideration. And what we also wanted to, staff would like to have a direction if some of this deliberation would be helpful if we have these discussions also in a separate meeting. So today we will be bringing up a strategic planning work group, which we will be constituting. And so can we have some of these discussions? What format would you like these discussions? And we would love for you to set a time frame for that, so that the staff can have clarity on by what time do we need to complete which process in order to be able to set ourselves in that policy discussion framework as soon as possible.
That was kind of a mouthful. The communities on the Business 77 project currently, you've got Waco, Bellmead, Lacey Lakeview, and Robinson, correct? That are working that project. And in terms of as of today, are there any stumbling blocks that anybody's aware of regarding the land use issues along that corridor that are prohibitive to any action that the policy board might or might not take. Just as an example, trying to come up with something hypothetically.
On 77, I'm sorry, cutting you right. We have the overlay, is that what we're talking about? So there's some,
Yes.
at least
Or share.
awareness, that we probably would like there to be. What we're trying to do in that particular subsection. Which is only. What we're looking for. That. Anything else to call?
No, I think that would be the primary one, and then maybe thinking about just from an inter-city relationship to how land use along the border. Cohesive
Kind of flows.
right? I think that's something that would be important. Or to think through at some point in time. Well,
You also need to consider, excuse me, once you get outside of your municipality, there is no governing land use. So that transition could be rather abrupt and sort of not in conjunction with what the municipality would want.
So I guess as a policy board, do we try to identify things with these players at the table that are of common interest and good for a shared corridor that the policy board should act on, I guess is the question. Is that it?
Well, in some ways you have already done that. So at the policy board, you directed the MPO to take the initiative with preparing the access and circulation guideline for the business swing corridor. And we had these meetings with the 4 cities, and it is ready to go. We have actually sent out the request for proposal from different agencies yesterday morning. And so that one, I would say that you've already done that. In future, what would be even more helpful for us is if you told us, here are some of your priorities, because Business 77 corridor, started off because all of a sudden the precipitation really was the railroad bridge, for which the TxDOT had the funding, and then TxDOT started thinking about a 2.5 mile long portion of it, and that's what began the discussion. But ideally, based on your value preferences, we can undertake similar ideas for different parts of the county. That way, that's not the only project, and that's the whole idea that based on your value preferences, whatever it is important to you, we could undertake these projects at different locations and try to come up with, how can we make some of these projects happen. So right now, for instance, the reason why I brought up Hewitt Drive or north-south feasibility studies, these are studies that are probably not going to happen on their own, at least for a few years. We know that because there is no funding allocated. But if we wanted to move them forward in alternative ways and trying to bring all the different municipalities or the government entities or different players on the table so that we will make some of these happen, we will need your direction. You will have to tell us that this is something that you like and that you are interested in the staff pursuing.
No, not at all. Well, like one thing I think of is, so my Waco City Council district borders both, there are county roads that it kind of borders and city of Woodway roads, or on the other side, some county road and city of Hewitt roads. Like, I think of those as more like, well, local funding is probably the solution to those problems, although it involves 3 entities that are at the table here. And I'm not thinking necessarily are there state or federal funds or solutions to those issues. I don't like, if I, as a policy board member, wanted to say, I'd really like us to find a, if possible, a solution to Old McGregor Road from Hewitt Drive to Richard Road. Is this an appropriate venue for that? You know, or is, like, if we had just a standing item here, do I then bring it to the board? And then we talk a little bit about it, and then we determine like, well, hey, that only involves 3 entities. So maybe that's a kind of a smaller group conversation afterwards to figure it out, and then it's brought back to the board as a tip amendment if appropriate or not. Is that like what you're, I don't know if that's,
Yes.
that would be like an issue. Of course, Hewitt Drive or Corridor 77 feel like they touch on a lot of us, but also state and federal funding are more implicated in those.
Yes.
So I don't know kind of maybe where the parameters of that, because I'm sure there's a lot of areas where kind of we have some jurisdictional issues or a road that may benefit more than one entity or a transportation corridor of some sort. I don't know, I'm way off here.
Yeah, that certainly makes sense to me. Maybe because I'm listening to your application and trying to think this through. So essentially what you're asking for is in the past, maybe there's been complaints in the past that any idea was a good idea. And a lot of times those ideas either came from MPO staff or from TxDOT, and those were good ideas, a lot of them, some we couldn't fund, some could. So essentially what I'm hearing you ask is, what do we want to prioritize? What's the board's desire with the limited funds that we have? What do we want to focus those improvements on? Councilman Porter said, I think last meeting, Councilman Fairfield talked about projects. So rather than maybe project specific, it's just an overall approach from the board that you're looking for that says we want to fund and target these kinds of projects. Vision statement is great, but that's $1 billion.
Yes.
So how do we want to take our limited funds and the ability for staff to go out and get funds? What do we want to direct you to go get?
Yes.
Right? Is that?
Yes, because what is going to happen is that, we have this, so based on, for instance, your regional vision statement, we took that and implemented it through the MTP evaluation criteria. Now, the challenge always is that MTP, the project development in the MTP often is such a surface level that by the time it gets in there, we haven't really thought through how are we prioritizing economic development, how are we prioritizing active transportation, how are we prioritizing quality of life. And if you have 20 different priorities simultaneously, that makes it really problematic. And so that's why sometimes these implementation ends up looking like very mechanical check the box material rather than engaged discussion among you. And that's why, so if you were to say that, here's a project that we want the MPO staff to pay attention to, our first question would be why? And then, and that why, the best answer to that why question really is that these are the policy board valued preferences. It may be regional quality of life. It may be regional economic development. It may be preservation of assets. And then, that way staff knows that these are the criteria with which we will, if you ask us to pursue a particular project, we will, and then we can do the analysis and present our finding to you and show it to you that, well, this really does not have as much value in terms of preserving our regional assets. And so, if there is, so that's the sort of discussion that we would have that way, the policy board. That's how we imagine it at the moment, that the policy board would be able to direct the staff. Because what is clearly a problem is that if, you can't tell us that here are 100 different projects that now go and start looking into each, all 100 projects. So we will have to prioritize, and we would like to prioritize it according to your preferences.
So last comment for me, it seems like probably struggle a little bit with the abstractness of the thought, how to bring it down to something manageable and understandable that we can touch sort of. Yes. It sounds like, a lot of cities do this. You sit down with your council and you have a retreat, you have a discussion about priorities and kind of whiteboard stuff, right? Get it on whiteboard, everybody tosses ideas out and narrow them down into something cohesive that can become what you're talking about.
Yes.
If I'm understanding. So it seems like to me, maybe as we're struggling with abstractness in this setting, it might be good to have work day, right? Kind of a workshop or something, an afternoon where that's what we talk.
Yes.
What is important to them? And narrow it down so we can have those values. Seems to me that's maybe an approach we take. You mentioned it here as a possible separate discussion, but I don't know, maybe that's something you just workshop it, get a whiteboard out, write up ideas and then narrow it to something that the board feels comfortable with. I don't know. Suggestion.
So, okay, I think what I'm starting a little bit with is, so the MTP update this last year and a half ago, wherever we were in the throes of that, and I had the privilege of being involved with many of the work group meetings, basically intaking the project, right? So with all these suggestions, this road, some of them are states, some of them are counties, some of them are cities, many of them are like, county board mentioning multiple jurisdictions. And then these project worksheets had to get submitted, and we basically do that every 5 years.
Yes.
And you do have the scoring system set up, where that helped rank those projects. So we've done that, we have that process, things get updated each year as needed, if there's a culinary incident, big safety incident, or funding drop, or something like that, we have flexibility with things. Am I hearing you saying this is more on the top end? Like, so instead of intaking projects and ideas, it's more about mention the priorities. So that as these projects may come in and they mention, there's something that bounces against it, says, yes, this fits vision, it's really important, we would continue it on, or, well, that doesn't seem consistent with what we said we wanted to do, so we may put that a lower priority. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yes, and so that our discussions aren't simply a competition among projects.
Right.
That way your discussions are really, as a regional entity, this is what we desire. And this is the reason why we want to advance this project over this project.
Right.
And that needs to be a transparent discussion rather than based on value preferences, rather than.
So maybe to put it either like in a business's terms or a nonprofit organization, then a lot of times they'll establish a mission statement, and then everything they do, they run through that mission statement. Fits, great, but if it doesn't, or if there's something that fit in some way, they would go a different direction. So I'm not proposing that we set it up as a mission statement. It's similar concept in that there's values established, priorities, and then as projects or thoughts come up, there's a way to really.
Yes.
Well, I agree with Paul that it probably would take more time than a standing board meeting to think through that. But I also understand it's very hard to get the church together. So
if you allow us, here's a thought for you to consider. We could also add this on the part of the strategic planning work group to think through the structure of what it might look like. The other option is that prior to the summer, so prior to the June meeting, we can figure out a particular day in which we do spend about an hour or two, which would be some sort of a workshop. We have in the past have had these questions that also we throw in too many acronyms simultaneously, and they all begin to look like word salad. And so we could actually add that as part of the discussion about why and how the statement of value preferences on the part of the policy board will allow us to improve those processes as well. Because at the end of the day, by federal law, we are required to produce the best MTP, the TIP, the UPWP, and these documents anyway. And we want to make sure that our core products are completely in line with what the policy board wants. And so we could very easily do that. So strategic planning work group can start thinking about the structure of it, and then simultaneously we can start thinking about a particular day prior to the June meeting, in which we could have the policy board come together to get in depth about this discussion.
So now, sound like a plan? All right.
Thank you.
We'll do that. Moving on to agenda item number 5, consideration and possible action regarding the recommendation from the Waco MPO Technical Advisory Committee to support roadway and public transportation safety performance targets established by TxDOT and Waco Transit, calendar year 2026.
So for each year, for each year, we set these targets. So first is the roadway safety target, then the public transit asset. Transit asset management, PTAS, and the safety targets for public transit. And so for each three of them, they're part of the planning process that we engage, and that is the performance management, which we connect them back into how the planning process works through the TIP and the development of MTP. So the reason we had the solicitation of comments from January 23rd to February 2nd, the informational meeting was on January 26th. We did it virtually only because that was the time when the temperature was quite bad that day. And so we had to do it virtually. We could not do it in person. Technical Advisory Committee reviewed and made its recommendation February 5th, and the public hearing and your action is today. We did not receive any public comment through our website. However, during the public informational meeting on January 26th, we had two major comments received. One from Toby Karosky, Executive Director of Mobilize Waco, which you can see the comment here. And the second major comment was from Suzette. She's a pedestrian safety specialist, and you have heard from her before. There are three major comments she had made, one of which had to do with our CRIS data set that TxDOT manages on behalf of all the local entities throughout the state of Texas. Does not often have a sheet of information that includes whether the ADA compliant infrastructure were contributory factors to crashes or not. And so at the MPO, what we have done is that we have reached out to the people who manage the crash information data set, and we have alerted them that there is a demand for including the information, whether the crashes have any relationship with the ADA compliant infrastructure or not. The second major comment is also that using leading pedestrian interval to lower pedestrian traffic conflict is it's something that came as a suggestion that we should seriously consider at several of our intersections. And also suitable mode delineation, because sometimes, especially with new scooters and electric bicycles, which are completely quiet, they often pose conflict with other disabilities. We also have Suzette here in the audience, so we can bring her up if there are more questions to this. The targets for the 5 years, let's go to the table, are that for 2026, statewide targets are 4,506 fatalities, translating to 1.44. That's per 100 million mile traveled, 18,884 serious injuries, for 6.30 serious injuries per 100 miles, per 100 million mile traveled. And the total number of non-motorized fatalities and serious injuries combined are 2,802. For McLennan County, when we translated it, more reasonable numbers look like this. 17 would be the target for fatality, 0.61 rate of fatality, 171 serious injury, 6.16 as the serious injury rate target, and 18 for non-motorized fatality and serious injury targets. These targets are slightly better than what the average statewide targets are. Next slide. For asset condition targets for Waco Transit participates in a group-sponsored plan that TxDOT produces for all the smaller transit agencies across the state. And typically 15% is the threshold we use for buses that can't be, no more than 15% of buses can be beyond useful life benchmark. And same is true for the assets. And similarly, facilities that also have to be at least 3.50 TERM scale, so that no more than 15% can be lower than that. So as I mentioned, that Waco Transit participates in the TxDOT's 23-26 group sponsored plan. And so we would be requesting you to support that. For the safety targets, Waco Transit adopted this at the Waco City Council meeting on December 15. These numbers are remarkably lower. Waco Transit operates a very safe system. It typically has a much better safety performance record than most other public transit agencies. And so as you can see in these numbers, these are remarkably low numbers, and we would be requesting you to support this. Next slide. The technical advisory committee reviewed and they made the recommendation to support these targets. And there are 3 separate resolutions associated with this. And so we are requesting you to consider these, hold the public hearing and make a decision and consider these targets for adoption.
This be done in one motion, or do you have to go through 3 separate?
You can do it in one motion. These are typical resolutions. We just have to submit them to TechStart in 3 separate resolutions.
So we have first resolution 2026-2, the Waco MPO Policy Board support of roadway safety performance targets for 2026 established by Texas Department of Transportation. We have resolution 2026-3, the Waco MPO Policy Board support of public transportation asset condition performance targets for 2026 established by the Waco Transit System Incorporated, and resolution 2026-4, Waco MPO Policy Board support of public transportation safety performance targets for 2026 established by Waco Transit System Incorporated. So, there's any other discussion?
Yes.
Yeah. We can open public hearing on these 3 resolutions at 2:05 p.m. Is there any registered speakers that would like to address the board on these resolutions? No? If none, then we'll close the public hearing at 2:06. We don't need a motion or a second on this, we just voice vote.
We do need a motion.
We need a motion.
I'm gonna look at all 3 resolutions 2026-2.
Have a motion? In a second. Those in favor indicate by saying yay.
Yay.
Those not in favor indicate by saying nay. Motion passes. Moving on to agenda item number 6. Review, discussion, and directive action regarding a recommendation from the Waco MPO Technical Advisory Committee to begin public engagement concerning proposals received during a call for plan and program amendments for calendar year 2026. Dr. Kumar.
So at the last meeting in January, you had given us the go-ahead to open the annual call for amendments, which we opened, and the window closed on February 6th. The eligible plans and programs were MTP TIP, Safety Action Plan, as well as Active Transportation Plan. We have so far received 7 proposals that we would like to hold public process on. And what we would like you to, what we are requesting today is that we would like to open the public engagement process with public meetings scheduled for February 26th at 12 p.m. at noon. And we would like to close the comment period on March 9th. And at the March Policy Board meeting, you will review the public comments. And at that time, you will give us the go-ahead to make some of the changes as appropriate. And so the qualification, preparation, public input. So once we get all the proposal process, them, we'll schedule them for different times during the year. So the proposal so far, what we have for the TIP is, so City of Waco received the Transportation Alternative Grant for the sidewalk project near the Waco High School in $3.2 million federal funds and just over 800,000 on local match for a total of 4.1 million total. That needs to be added into our TIP. We're also going to be proposing increasing the construction funding for SPAR 298 by about $5.76 million for Category 2 funding. And for the transit vehicle acquisition, will shift from low to no emission to hybrid electric vehicles. We also have proposals for the Comprehensive Safety Action Plan from City of McGregor, as well as updating the Active Transportation Plan using recommendations from 25th, 26th Street corridor. So those are the proposals we have. And today our request to you is to direct the staff to conduct the public comment period.
Are there questions or concerns regarding directing MPO staff to begin public engagement concerning proposals received during a call for a plan and program amendments for calendar year 2026? If none, those in favor signify by saying yay. Yay. Any opposed by nay? Thank you. Agenda item number 7, review, discussion, and directive action on forming a strategic planning work group following redesignation. Dr. Kumar.
So, so this is sort of the first meeting, in which we're undertaking under the redesignated, MPO. So there are several changes that we will need to be making. One of the important ones is the bylaw update that is going to be important. We need to get our bylaws updated so that we're anticipating the TMA status at the next census. We need to prepare for that. The fiscal agent MOU at this, with the redesignation, until now, the City of Waco was the designated MPO. Now you are the designated MPO. So what that means is that earlier, the designated MPO and the fiscal agent, they're both one and the same, they're City of Waco. But now there's a clear separation between the designated MPO and the fiscal agent. What that means is that triggers a memorandum of understanding that outlines the role of the fiscal agent and their responsibility to the policy board. And so we need to develop that MOU. Similarly, there have been discussions about how we structure some of our meetings, which we just discussed previously. In the last MTP cycle, we did quite a bit of thought process about what needed to be included in the MTP, and with the strategic planning group, we'll also talk about the next MTP that we're doing. The naming and the branding of the MPO as a follow-up to redesignation is another issue there. TMA preparation is there, regional decision-making framework and the policy, that's part of that discussion, and any other relevant issue that the policy board might want to assign as the task of the strategic planning work group. And so today, what we are really asking you is to constitute this work group so that we can start having these discussions. They will come and do a presentation about where they are. And in terms of timeline, we are hoping that we'll complete all of this by June meeting. And at the June meeting, the final recommendation of the strategic planning work group will be presented to you. And hopefully you will accept them, and that will serve as the guiding line for the staff to pursue for the next 4 to 5 years. Previously, last time we did this was in early 2022. And at that time, we had 2 members from the policy board, 2 members from technical advisory committee, and 1 citizen representative. Our recommendation to you is to have both the chairs of the policy board and the technical advisory committee. In addition, we would like your direction, whether you want the technical advisory committee to select another member from the technical advisory committee, or if you would like to select them. And we definitely want you to have at least 1 more designee from the policy board and 1 citizen representative. So that's our recommendation.
Are there questions or concerns regarding the formation of a strategic planning work group?
I told Mukesh that if he wanted a lame duck council member on his strategic work group, that I would be willing to serve, but I don't know if May or June will be my last day, but I'm willing to serve it out on that group.
Would you want to be a citizen?
I guess, yeah, I might be shifting in the citizen role, midstream there.
A player to be named later.
That's right. That's right.
I can help you if you want.
So, Dr. Kumar, what do you want to do today? You want a motion on the consideration of the makeup and the formation of the strategic planning work group?
Yes, we would really like you to go ahead and decide that for us so that we can start scheduling that meeting. So we don't necessarily need the motion as much as, so for instance, if we are recommending that both you and Amy from TAC do serve, and then we have 3 more people and we have to decide on, and those 3 more people can be from the policy board, technical advisory committee, citizen representative.
I was gonna ask, since the board or since the work group is gonna be making recommendations to the board on the values and things we talked about, maybe we get heavy on the board. Amy from TAC, so one citizen, if you have five, that's three from the board.
Sure.
Great, got two great volunteers already.
All you want.
No. I didn't. It seems to me that we should get someone else who may have been longer tenured on the board. That's my suggestion.
Yeah.
I am, you're sure old, that's what I'm saying.
My attorney says it should follow the claim on it. Not for the record, because I'm joking. So. You got Josh.
Do you need individuals for that, because or just the composition?
We would like, if you can tell us individual, it will make our lives much easier. That way we can go ahead and start scheduling the meetings.
So you got
We
three.
determine if he's a city. Is he a designee or is he a citizen?
Josh and Lincoln, who else?
Did we determine?
Josh.
Because oftentimes what happens is like, for example, I have my successor will be Jed Cole, who has been on the board, maybe is not now. Because he was planning commission chair and maybe is not now. But usually the appointment lags a month or two. And so that was the thought, is that I may be here for this meeting. And as the appointee of the city of Waco, although not, and still a policy board member, although not a council member, that month and a half or whatever.
Our recommendation.
So you got Bo, Yost, and Josh from the board, Amy from TAC, and one citizen.
Yes,
That's five.
Yes.
That's what you wanted, right?
yes, that's what
What do you think?
time has worked really well.
Teresa said it's gonna be, is that what you're asking?
Yeah,
I know Mr. Adams may have an interest.
Oh, that's kind of.
How long is this?
I mean, that's. Keep it voluntold.
So in terms of timeline, there is a lot of work to be done. And of course, we will be preparing the document to review and comment and such, but by June, so June meeting is when they'll present their recommendation to the policy board.
Okay, she'll only make a Right.
Well, I would motion for that, but we care.
Do you need that formally?
No, as long as you all are agreeing to it and nobody had an objection to it, we have our marching orders.
Okay.
Good link up.
Okay, great, thank you.
Moving on to agenda item number 8. Update and discussion on current grant efforts. Dr. Kumar.
So one of the important things we decided to add in this, rather than just give you a general update, why do we do this in the first place? And so we have been motivated by three really important considerations. One is that we want to be able to use technology whenever possible to build capacity and address our needs. We also want to make sure that our transportation system improves on safety regularly and consistently. And simultaneously, our commitments are entirely to multimodal connectivity across the region. And so we have been able to do them largely through SS4A funding, SMART grant, and the Raise Build grant. And so that these grant funded projects that we undertake, they're not just projects because there was money available. We have been taking them systematically to achieve those three major outcomes related to technology, safety, and multimodality. Let's go to the next slide. And so for the SS4A 2023 grant, right now, all the jurisdictions heard from the consultants at the December meeting. And right now, TxDOT staff is considering all the proposals that the consultants had made about what is feasible, what is not feasible, what makes sense, what does not make sense. And the moment TxDOT staff has reviewed them thoroughly, because most of these projects are on TxDOT right of way. And so once they have given us their final consideration, we will move forward with these. The demonstration project for the sign inventory, we are about to get started. We had our first meeting yesterday, in which we have, day before yesterday, in which we got to hear from several cities about what their preferences and the uses for sign inventory is going to be. And the grant execution is completed, and we will have the RFQ drafted within a month or so. We'll send it back out to all the cities and get their feedback, and then we'll put this RFQ out for public consumption. The RAISE grant, we have the kickoff meeting was on December 19th, and as we make progress, we will keep you updated on this. And the SMART grant is very much in the process. We are in the process of installing some of these cameras at different intersections throughout the project location. So those are the updates I had for the grant funded projects.
Any questions, Dr. Kamar? Okay. Moving on to agenda item number 9, update and discussion from the Technical Advisory Committee from the Chair, Amy Highland.
Good afternoon, everybody. We had a pretty busy meeting this last month. Talked through all of those supporting TxDOT's safety targets that you all just approved and agreed to, as well as the public engagement. We have started a report every month. We go around to different municipalities and have them talk about what's going on in their municipality, what's of interest. So this past month I was in the hot seat, so I got to give a presentation about McLean County and things that people probably never knew about the county. I hope at least it was interesting. We also have a standing item to talk about intergovernmental cooperation. So if there are projects like we were referring to where there are intersections between different agencies, we have a space where we can talk about that during our meetings. Talk about the deadline for updates or any changes to the MDP, the TIP, CSAP, and ATP. Also had a presentation from Seth about the City of Waco's master thoroughfare plan, and I believe today is the last day for making comments on that if anyone's interested. We do have an opening. We need a small cities south representative on the tech committee. So if you know of anyone who you think would be a good addition or is interested, please feel free to let me or Mukesh or any of the staff know. And then we talked about redesignation and the fact that we will be a TMA in 2030 and what the impacts of that are going to be and how we are going to have to start getting together what we need to do for things that are going to change about that. And then we had a discussion about the fact that we should all be reading Paved Paradise, How Parking Explains the World. Is it for our... Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. Moving on to agenda item number 10. Update and discussion from the Texas Department of Transportation regarding significant highway construction within the Waco metropolitan area. Mr. Clayton Zach.
Sir. First project here is 31 and 2311. So on the 2311 side of things, from 308 down to Kirkland Hill Road is all paved out. Bridges have been reopened. Contractors working on the rehab and widening from Kirkland Hill down to 31. Anticipate that being paved this spring, early summer. On 31 itself, if you go to the next slide, right there. We placed the bridge deck for the westbound direction end of last week. Eastbound, I found out this morning is actually scheduled for the beginning of next week. So next week we'll have both bridges poured, continuing working on embankment, and then from there we'll move to the intersection work underneath. But this project is still on target for that end of 2026 completion. Twin Bridges just continues to move along. Right now we're roughly about a third of the way through the drill shafts. I anticipate that going through the end of this spring, summer. We poured our first column last week. Contractors continuing to work on those columns. So we'll have all drill shafts and columns for the existing southbound direction late spring, early summer, and then at that point is when we'll move both lanes over to the northbound bridge to start removing the southbound structure. Still looking at that late 2028 completion for the project. Waco Drive, this is one we've gotten fortunate with the weather the last couple of weeks. Contractors moved back in. Likely as of tomorrow, we'll have all of the first lifter pot mix in place throughout the entire project limits. They'll move to the final surface next week as well. Roughly 2 to 3 weeks of paving at that point left to complete it. So looking at final striping being complete late this spring, early summer, and having this one wrapped up. 2113, again, this is a rehab and widening from Hewitt Drive down to Cotton Belt Parkway. So the southern half of the job from Cotton Belt to Old Lorena Road has been rehabbed, widened, and paved. Big Creek's currently working between Old Lorena and Hewitt Drive, working on the cement treated base and emulsion treated base. Again, expect to have that one paved out. Going to be well ahead of that summer 2027 completion, assuming things continue to win. I-35, if you want to walk through the photos. So here at the southern end, the big thing to note here is the continued retaining wall and bridge work at New Road. We'll move to the next slide. So here's a shot. You can see the new retaining walls going in. Bridge columns are in place, caps are in place. Once the retaining walls are up to the top, we'll have the abutments in place and then setting beams this summer on this structure. Moving to the north, the northbound frontage road between New Road and Irving Lee, primarily wastewater, water line, and drainage going in. Here at Irving Lee and up to LaSalle, you can see the large drainage structures that go to Primrose Creek. One thing to note here is we're probably a month or so away from those structures making their way to the Irving Lee intersection. At that point, there will be a 2-week closure of the Irving Lee intersection. We'll bring those structures underneath the existing bridges and get them ready to tie into the downstream into the structure there at the southbound frontage road in front of HDP. Looking at some potential, go back one more, we're also looking at some potential ways to get into this Irving Lee intersection a bit early. So it's possible you see this bridge come down in the March, April timeframe as well. So this is just another close-up of the drainage structures there. You can see their travel informed system kind of coming out of that top slab. So as they complete a section, those forms will actually roll down. Just keep it going like a train at that point. And then moving up to the north end at 17th, 18th. So similar story to New Road. Contractors installing permanent retaining wall, shoring, bridge columns are in place. They're actually hanging the cage for the cap today. So you'll see continued retaining wall and bridge work here as well. Here's just a shot of the north transition back to existing pavement. Again, still looking at that early 2029 completion here. I believe that's it. So, questions?
Thank you very much, Clay. Agenda item number 11, MPO monthly report. Dr. Moore?
We have an update for the bicycle pedestrian work group. Meeting was yesterday.
Hello, everybody. Ricky Rose with the Bike and Ped Work Group. So we met yesterday. We also did a short ride from our office, for downtown office to, the goal was to make it to South Third and U Park's intersection, just to kind of see how that new light fixtures work with the existing bike lanes on the other side. Still kind of a little work to be done on that intersection, but it was good to have some of the riders kind of interact with that intersection, see how they walk there. Then we discussed primarily, and I think this is based on the fact that previously the ATP, the Active Transportation Plan, was largely informed by the bicycle and pedestrian work groups and a lot of the kind of their input. And so that was the bulk of our discussion at the meeting. So everyone that attended had a lot to say as to how we can get people engaged with updates to that. You know, some of the positives from the previous iteration, you know, Cobb's being one, New Road potentially being another one that's you know, breaking ground pretty soon. Washington Avenue, you know, being success stories from that, 19th Street in the FTC area. And so, you know, we discussed some of those success stories, but also how we can make it more of a regional plan. And so that was one item that was discussed in the meeting. And then additionally, we also spoke about the bike plan coming in May, which, you know, would be the next day of our bicycle pedestrian work group meeting. But then there's also plans to potentially have events throughout the month, maybe a bike to work day, bike to work week. And so keep an eye out for stuff on the bike and pedestrian work group regarding that for May. And then, you know, we had briefly mentioned the 6 to Fix project that the MPO is undertaking. And this Saturday, I believe there is an event at Pecan Coffee for the park light that they're installing in that location. So if you all are able to attend, make sure you go out to that. Great.
Any others? No. It's good. Thanks.
So we wanted to just give you an update that the Business 77 Access Regulation Guideline that has gone up. We have started receiving from several cities the local fund contributions. We're very good with that. Strategic planning work group, that we already discussed that, and we wanted to bring up the other item related to attendance. But let's go to the next slide. So this is the one, Business 77 Corridor and US 77 Access Circulation Guideline. All the planning directors and the city managers have reviewed it. No further revisions are being made to the scope of work. It went out yesterday, and we'll keep you updated as it goes on. Next slide. The other item was the member attendance. One of the things we wanted to draw your attention to is that our policy board bylaws, it shows that any voting member missing 3 consecutive meetings will be removed from the policy board. The representative will name a replacement. Obviously attendance is really important because as you noticed that we are, your decisions end up shaping how the future of the region is going to look like. But even what we did was that we had requested the policy board at the last September meeting to specify the steps of these. And so these are the steps that, let's go to the next slide, that we need to follow. The step 1 is that after 2 consecutive missed meetings, the member is notified by the MPO director, me, and then the step 2 is the staff informs the policy board of the absence and notification at the next regularly scheduled meeting. And in the 3rd step is that after 3 consecutive such meetings, a resolution is automatically placed on the agenda for renewal. And so typically what we would like to do is that in each of the month, we would like to include your attendance report that looks something like this, that gives you an information on what the missing or what the absences and such are. And so related to that, so that's what we wanted to update you on. Related to that, a question had come up and which we need your direction on, that if a policy board member were to attend virtually, does that count as attendance or not? And it is my interpretation that of the Open Meeting Act is that that in order to attend virtually, it is important that the person attending is visible and both through audio and video. And at the same time, the person needs to be able to address the policy board also. And we do not typically, anyone who joins via the Zoom link we have, it's typically a listening in session only. So this is where we are. So to that question, I did mention that I'll bring it to the policy board's attention and see if policy board had any guidance to the staff on that. And if you have questions regarding Open Meeting Act, Will has been advising us all this while on this, and so he's here to answer any question related to that as well.
And the proxy process is available through the website. So.
Yes, or you can also email us or call us and tell us, we will send you the proxy. Yes.
Is the Zoom link sent out for each meeting?
Yes, we typically send it to ex officio members, so typically FHWA and TxDOT reps who operate from Austin.
I got tired. I was trying to attend via Zoom last night. Never could get it.
I see. Now, if you find yourself in that position, please let us know so that we can make sure that we send you an email with the link. Yeah, because we are not, so other than FSWA, we don't host the public policy board meeting as a hybrid meeting. We really do this as a courtesy. So this is an in-person meeting. And so if you find yourself in that position, please let us know so that we can make sure that you have a link to it.
Anything further?
The next item we have is there is a ribbon cutting, and Mayor Holmes has graciously agreed to give a speech there, and Chairman Thomas has to attend to some personal meetings, so he can't be there. But if you can please come, that will be fantastic. This is kudos to Enrique and all the MPO staff who have worked diligently on this too. And also, of course, to Alex, who runs the Be Kind Coffee. And so the ribbon cutting will be on Saturday at 11 o'clock. Please come if you can and join us. I think, Enrique, we updated, do we have a bike and some running involved with it too?
After the ribbon cutting.
After the ribbon cutting. So of course, come in your shorts so that we can go out for a run or a bike afterwards.
Mayor, are you gonna be joining in the biking or the running?
We'll bring it tomorrow. Yeah, still back in time and redo it.
So, yeah, so please come if you can. It will be a really very pleasant moment. And along with the fact that we are expecting that this will improve safety conditions in the area. This is sort of a community project that we're really excited about. Next item. We have a book club, and this is the paved paradise that Amy mentioned, how parking explains the world. And we have not decided upon the meeting. If you can get hold of the book, please start reading. It will probably be at least another 2 to 3 months before we actually schedule the discussion.
Who's saying the song Paved Paradise? Paul, you know that.
Yeah, just thinking.
Joni
Who's
Mitchell.
singing the song?
Joni Mitchell, then covered by county. MPO trivia night, we got a minute.
So those were all the items we have, and after the announcement and the hearing of the visitors, we wanted to let you know that we have an executive session scheduled.
Yeah, what?
Executive session. So, moving to agenda item number 12, announcements. The next regularly scheduled MPO Policy Board meeting is Thursday, March 19th, 2026 at 1:30 p.m. If you cannot attend the meeting, please ensure you've assigned a proxy to represent you. Does anyone have an agenda item they would like to have considered for a future meeting? Okay. Agenda item number 13, hearing of visitors. At this time, we provide an opportunity for the public to address the MPO Policy Board on any item of MPO business not identified on this agenda. Please note that the Policy Board cannot respond to comments received during the hearing. Daniela.
En este momento brindamos una oportunidad para que el público se dirigiera a la Junta de Políticas de MPO sobre cualquier tema de negocios de MPO no identificado en esta agenda.
Thank you. So we'll open the hearing of visitors at 2:37 p.m. MPO staff, do we have any registration cards for items not on the agenda? No. No. Therefore, if there's no one that's going to address the board, we will close the hearing of visitors at 2:37 p.m. And we will move to agenda item number 14, executive session. The Waco Metropolitan Planning Organization Policy Board is going to convene in open session, declared a quorum on February 19, 2026, and has posted an official agenda indicating the possible need for an executive session. The Waco MPO Policy Board will conduct a closed executive meeting under 551.074 of the Texas Government Code to convene regarding a discussion of the MPO director's relationship with the policy board and other personnel matters arising from the Waco MPO redesignation. There will be no action taken in executive session. Any action resulting from the executive session will be taken in open session immediately following the executive session. Time is now 2:39 p.m. This time we would ask that all those in attendance who are not voting members of the policy board or MPO staff step out of the meeting room until the policy board reconvenes into open session. Thank you. Before we start in this session, what we wondered was if Will has been advising us throughout, and that is one of the challenges related to personal data that we have to discuss, that whether the city of Waco's city attorney office can continuously be the legal representation for the MPO Policy Board as well. So the reason why he walked out is because he's not a member of the policy board, and that now that we are redesignated, it's up to us. If you think it is fine for him to be in this meeting, we can bring him in.
He's been serving as your, counsel, your counsel's SEL, legally.
Yeah.
He's our attorney.
Yeah, he has been our attorney for the policy board at this time.
He might be looking.
Yes.
City attorney.
And our executive session. The necessary staff, is he participating in the discussion?
I guess it's kind of your comfort level, but yeah, so I guess the relationship has changed, right?
Yeah.
So
Okay.
the client was the city of Waco, now the MPO is, the city is the fiscal agent, but it's not the governing body that has the power structure over the MPO staffing.
Correct.
So the line is directly to you. So utilizing the city of Waco's attorney, we are not, the MPO staff is not necessarily their client anymore, is the concern, is that right?
Yes, yes. Now, we're not making any decision today. So this is really for discussion purposes. We want to put it on your radar, what some of the personnel issues are likely to arise with this. And so if you would like.
Because of redesignation.
Yes.
Yes.
This way was still in this code. So basically, we do the legal representation, fiscal agent. Yes.
Or just retain service.
There will come a point.
You have to choose an individual company.
What, so what?
Potentially, yes. Take liberty of father time here in just a second. The time is now 3:06. And the Waco MPO Policy Board is reconvening into open session. There was no action taken in executive session. Move on to agenda item 15. Adjournment, being no further business, we will adjourn the meeting at 3:07 PM. Thank you very much.
Some of this.